Hello, and welcome to the third round of the Amsterdam Chess Open 2025. This game was I don't even know how to describe it. It was an incredible game and one of the longest games over the board that I have ever played. This game went on for a total of 76 moves and over 4.5 hours. So let's not waste any time and let's go right into it. My opponent and I went into a Grunfeld defense. This is just the main line of the Grunfeld, all very standard, slightly imprecise by both of us here. Now I jump in the center with my knight. All that happened so far is just very normal. C5 is very thematic in the Grunfeld. We're trying to basically open up this diagonal for the dark square bishop, and white is trying to hold on this position. Don't be scared of this push. This is always quite weakening because, as I said, this is the goal of black. Black is trying to open up this diagonal. So something like queen c7. The engine I see is saying queen a3 for some reason. But I was planning to simply go back, and now this is still a threat, and that would have been quite nice. So that's why my opponent instead plays like this. Now I jump with my knight in the center, queen c2, and now knight takes, and g takes f3. So a kind of unusual move by the opponent, but it's actually pretty good. Now the reason why my opponent didn't go bishop takes f3 here is that I can actually probably push c4 here and create this kind of barricade on the weakness on c3 long term. The engine also likes b5, so kind of preparing that even more. But a very interesting idea by the opponent, quite creative, g takes f3. By the way, I forgot to specify that at this stage in the tournament, I have played 2 games and lost both of them. If you have not seen those recaps, you can go back and watch them. So I am not going into this game very happy, but I am trying to make a comeback. And let's see what happens. So queen back to c7. This move is just kind of trying to aim at controlling these central squares. I'm preparing the c4 push, and I'm removing the queen from the diagonal of the bishop. Now a4, I castle, and h4. I stop it with h5. Not fully necessary, but I just didn't want any problems with, let's say, a pawn push like this with h5, opening up my king side. So that's why I went h5. The opponent plays queen to b3. I develop my bishop, and now here, by the way, it was very crucial for me to find this move e6. And e6 is a move that I was calculating, but the issue is that I thought that after bishop here, I could not take here, because then the bishop captures back, and I thought, well, I'm simply giving an outpost to this bishop. So a square that is defended by an opponent's pawn and is not, it cannot be attacked by any of my pawns. But the engine here finds bishop e6, sacrificing a pawn in the center with check. But apparently after king to h7, black is doing great here, because the rooks are going to come to the center, and this white king all of a sudden is becoming a little bit exposed. So despite being down a pawn, and by the way, if you attack this pawn, it's never a problem. The rook can simply defend and attack the queen. We're also attacking f3 here directly, so maybe the king has to defend that. Overall, a very good position for black, but that's the reason why I didn't go for e6. So instead I develop my bishop, the opponent plays f4, and now I find this very nice idea, c4. The concept of c4 is that if the queen takes, I'm going to take, and then bring the rook here. Now threatening the bishop has to move back, let's say here, and now I'm going to be able to pick up this pawn again like this, and I am kind of unraveling my pieces. Now the engine doesn't love this. It thinks that after this and this, white has a slight edge, but at this stage in the game I thought it was a very nice find, and my opponent agreed. He didn't take the pawn, and now I followed up with bishop h6. I'm trying to kind of pressure this pawn here on f4. The opponent pushes, very natural, and here I go now to e6, but this is a mistake, because after the pawn pushes, which of course I have calculated, and the queen attacks the rook in the corner, we forever have to take care of this weakness, strength of the opponent. A passed and protected pawn in the center that cannot very easily or at all be removed in the long run. And you will see that this pawn will be a problem later in the game. So my idea was that now at least my queen is trying to get in. So let's say that the rook moves. I was thinking queen in to e4. And what I missed is that actually my opponent can simply play something like f3 and push the queen away. So this plan simply doesn't work. But my opponent goes f3 right away. And this is not great because it allows f6. And I think that this should receive a great move mark, because it is the only move that all of a sudden shifts the energy in the position. Every other move, the second best move is king to h7. It's still an advantage for white, but f6 is basically trying to open up the line of sight of this rook and play against these doubled pawns and play against the king that is stuck in the center. And I never have any danger with my king. The king simply goes to h7 and none of the white pieces can attack this g pawn anymore. So I was very proud of this move. Now the opponent castles long, and when I saw this on the board, I made a face. I mean, I was very surprised by this, but it makes a lot of sense. It is the second best engine move, which is quite surprising. Now I took in the center, a little bit premature. The engine prefers king h7 and kind of waiting a little while. But okay, taking and takes back. Now I trade the bishops. The bishop was hanging, and I come in with my rook, and I'm basically threatening to win this pawn. And this cannot be defended because this would drop the rook. But my opponent goes to g1. Now I have to play king h7, defending the pawn, and the rook comes in like this. Now here the critical move is to take this rook. Now we create a passed pawn, and we're getting rid of the pressure on the g pawn, and we can come up with the rest of the plan from here. For example, the engine is saying a6 here, or even b5 right away. Although this would allow to lock down the position like this, I'm not fully sure what the idea is. Oh, okay, I see. The engine is now saying rook f8. So after the position on this side is locked down, we can shift the attack to the other side. Instead, I defend the rook like this, which is kind of the more natural move, I suppose. My opponent comes in, best move. And now I trade. The opponent takes back, and I find the only move b5. So let's break that down a little bit. The reason why taking now is not as good is because the engine thinks that rook takes f3 is the way to go, sacrificing a rook. But now after the queen takes, we are infiltrating with the queen and rook and creating some very nasty checkmating threats. And as a matter of fact, black is completely winning with everything apart from rook d1. Rook d1 is the only move that stays in the game for white, and this is a dead draw position. But for example, let's say a move like what's the second best move? King to b1. We simply have queen to h1 check, and if king up, this is this is checkmating too, actually, like this, which is kind of crazy thanks to the pawn. Yeah, just a very dangerous position for white. So instead I take and I go b5, and for the record, I was calculating the rook sacrifice. I just thought it was too dangerous. And now the reason why b5 is the only move is that because in this moment the rook and bishop are teaming up on this c pawn, and there is no way to defend that pawn. After b5 we are still going to lose the pawn, but this time after the bishop takes, this pawn falls too, and this one is under attack with check. Even if we lose this pawn here, we can, for example, let's see, yeah, queen g5 check, the king moves. We can potentially, well, we have to take care of this bishop. So maybe rook f7, something like this, and this is still a game. It's a complicated game. According to the engine, black has a slight advantage. Instead, my opponent goes f4, but this allows me to come to b8 like this. And now, very important that my opponent plays queen to b4 and enters this endgame like this. So let's say something like this, takes and takes, and this is an equal game. Apparently it's better to take with the bishop because now there's no rook trade, and white forever has the strength of this passed pawn that I will have to babysit. Although I have my own passed pawns, so it's still a very complicated game. But instead my opponent blunders and goes to d2 with the king, and now the only move to fight for an advantage is queen to b1, which I do find. And the problem is that there is no way to stop the rook from coming in with b2. If you try to run away, let's say king here, I think in the game I was considering this check, and then still bringing the rook in. What does the engine think? Oh, bishop to c6 check now. Yeah, I mean, all of the pieces are coming into the attack, and this is going to be a slaughter. Instead, my opponent goes back like this, a very nice defensive move. After rook to b2 check, the king can hide, but the issue is that I have queen to c1, and queen to c1 sets up all kinds of threats. So for example, let's say a random move, we can just give a check and literally win the queen like this. Or if, I don't know, white tries to defend this check here with the queen, we have check and mate. So literally any move that white does is going to allow a checkmate. So white has to sacrifice the queen, and black is completely winning. So this is the end of the game, right? No, this is far from the end of the game. As a matter of fact, we are on move 33 and there are 43 moves to go. So we're not even halfway done. And the reason why is that after white picks up this pawn here on c4, he is actually coming up with some nasty traps. I decided to go back with the king. The issue is that white is coming to c7, going to pin this bishop here, and then he's gonna have a protected passed pawn, only 2 steps away from promoting, and he still has a bishop and a rook to fight for it. So here I thought for a very long time. Let's see, I had 23 minutes before this move, and after my next move I only had 10 minutes. So I thought for a total of 13 minutes about my next move. What I was worried about was that if I play something like queen to b5, after white comes here and attacks the bishop, I don't actually have a way to unpin it. So let's say that I move my king away, there is going to be c4, and the engine finds queen to b4 check here, and we just start attacking the king. And apparently white never really has a chance to either take the bishop, or even if white does take the bishop, so let's say I move like this, black is still completely winning because there are going to be all kinds of checks, the pawn can never be pushed. But being at the board without the evaluation bar, and you look, oh my god, I'm going to lose my bishop, I was quite scared. I was like, am I actually going to blunder a draw here, or even blunder a loss? So that's why I thought for this long, and eventually settled on king g8. And then I came to defend the bishop, the opponent picked up this pawn, and now I came here, he attacks the queen, and now I start giving checks. So the best thing to do here is to simply leave the bishop there. Leave the bishop to hang, and there is going to be no issue. But now I start chasing the king around, and I actually give a chance to my opponent to be back in the game. After queen to b2 check, the king now can go to c5, and this is actually a draw. The king runs away from the checks, so, well, if I give a check like this, for example, I lose the bishop and I'm actually losing the game. And if I save my bishop, wait, this is still losing? Oh yeah, d7. And you see, like, it's very easy to go wrong here. But for some kind of miracle, my opponent went to e4, blundering the game away completely. And now I found a very nasty sequence, starting with the brilliant bishop takes c4, a full bishop sacrifice. And the idea is that after the rook takes, I now have queen to b7 check, skewering the king and bishop. So if the king moves, for example, here, I can simply take. And if the king tries to hold on to the bishop, now I have queen to b3 check. I'm attacking the king, I'm attacking the rook, the king has to defend the rook, and now I pick up the bishop anyway. And I got rid of a pawn in the process. And this cannot be pushed because of this check, like this. Boom, and black is completely winning. So after this skewer, my opponent moves, I pick up the bishop, and now it's a matter of avoiding the pawn's promotion. I bring my king in, I stop the rook checks, and now I start checking the white king. I'm trying to pick up this pawn at the end of the pawn chain. I eventually managed to do that right here. I pick up everything. My opponent pushes, but now I have queen to d5. Rook to d4 follows, but I sacrifice my queen, and this is a simply winning endgame. My opponent promotes to a knight for whatever reason. He knew he was completely lost, so he was just playing random moves, and after a while he finally accepts the loss and he resigns. So that was round number 3. Finally, I got a win. I am now on 1 point out of 3 games, and there are 3 more games to go. I was very pleased with this game. I was very pleased with the idea, where is it, to sacrifice my bishop on c4, so around here. God, this game was so long. Yeah, bishop c4. I was very happy with that, and then the skewer. And all in all, a very good game from a Grunfeld. Love to play this opening. And yeah, guys, if you like this type of videos, if you want to support me in my journey, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and I will see you on round 4. See you.